Every few weeks now, somebody uploads a fresh chart telling you the United States has hit stage 7, not stage 1 drift, not stage 2 decay, not stage 3 debt, but stage 7. Terminal. Past the point of no return, the part of the movie where empires crack, currencies die, and maps get redrawn. The script is always the same. They point at polarization, at debt, at ugly politics. They name drop a few Ivy League scholars, and then they circle a year like 2025 and say, this is it. The American empire ends here. Tonight we are not going to argue feelings versus feelings. We are going to do what nobody reading you a stage 7 checklist ever does. Put that story next to what people actually doing the work at Yale and elsewhere are publishing right now on democratic backsliding, on financial crises, on innovation and global power, and then pull out one boring little empire resilience factor for 2026 that almost never shows up in collapsed thumbnails, but that real strategists care about. Let us start with the democracy angle, because that is usually Exhibit A for the Stage 7 crowd. Yale's Institution for Social and Policy Studies has spent the last few years talking to the people who literally write the papers on democratic backsliding, the ones who study Hungary, Turkey, Brazil, and yes, the United States. They are not sugarcoating anything. In those conversations, you hear words like crisis and erosion and high polarization over and over. The researchers describe a pattern you will recognize: parties treating every election like existential war, voters willing to trade away procedure for partisan wins, leaders testing how far they can push courts and guardrails. So, no, serious Yale people are not out here saying everything is fine. They are saying democracy in the United States is under real pressure, that polarization makes it harder for voters to punish anti-democratic behavior, and that the next decade will not be a calm one. Here is what they are not saying. They are not publishing a neat 7-stage cartoon with a skull at the end and a date stamped on it. They are not calling the United States a failed state. They are not telling you the system cannot correct. In fact, if you read or listen all the way through, the boring headline is that the outcome is contingent. It depends on choices, coalitions, and institutions, not fate. The Stage 7 lie takes that messy picture, deletes the uncertainty, and replaces it with prophecy. Now zoom out from democracy to empire. This is not the first time smart people around Yale have argued about American decline. Decades ago, Yale historian Paul Kennedy made his name writing about how great powers overextend themselves and fade. He has been quoted endlessly in every American empire is finished article since. But if you actually look at his later commentary, he is not the cardboard collapse mascot the internet wants him to be. In the early 2000s, he wrote that the American mix of economic, diplomatic, and technological muscle made it the single most powerful state in history. A staggering array of force. In more recent interviews, he has been careful to separate two different questions. 1. Is the United States facing serious structural challenges? 2. Is there any other country that has already replaced it as the system's central node? On that second question, the answer is still not yet. That is the first thing the Stage 7 lie skips. It treats under strain as identical to already dethroned. So what does the scoreboard say right now? On the economic side, the United States is still the largest single economy on Earth in nominal terms, and still a huge share of global output even when you adjust for purchasing power. The International Monetary Fund expects growth to be slow but positive in 2025 and 2026, not the double-digit contraction you see when empires actually fall off a cliff. On the innovation side, the latest Global Innovation Index has the United States sitting in the top 3 worldwide, behind the usual small, hyper-wealthy outliers like Switzerland and Sweden, and ahead of most of its peers. China has just broken into the top 10. The story there is catch-up, not replacement. A separate 2024 study by Clarivate looks at highly cited research and patent links worldwide and still finds that a huge share of the science-beating global patents is coming from United States institutions, universities, labs, and public research centers. That is not what late-stage, hollowed-out empires usually look like. They tend to lose the innovation edge first, fall behind in the creation of new technologies and ideas, and only then lose the power to set the rules. You can argue that the United States is misusing that capacity. You can argue that it is concentrating the gains too narrowly. You cannot argue with a straight face that the innovation engine is gone. Now look at the crisis and finance side, because here the Stage 7 story leans hard on one more shock and everything breaks. Yale's program on financial stability was created after the global financial crisis with a very simple mission. Collect the case studies, the interventions, the mistakes, and the improvisations from crises around the world, and turn them into a body of knowledge you can actually use the next time markets seize up. The program runs simulations, publishes in the Journal of Financial Crises, trains officials from central banks and finance ministries, and works with places like the International Monetary Fund on courses that are literally about how to spot weak banks and manage failures before they infect everything. Do those people think the system is bulletproof? No. Their whole working assumption is that crises keep happening. Their work is built around a different question. Do you learn or do you die? And in the wake of the last big shock, the 2008 crisis, and then the pandemic, the answer so far has been that the United States did learn at least something. Capital rules were tightened, crisis playbooks were written down, swap lines and backstops were tested and refined. When the pandemic hit, the financial system did not implode the way it did in 2008 because a lot of very boring people had spent a decade building thicker shock absorbers. You can hate the bailouts, you can hate the inequality that followed, but if you are honest, on the narrow question of resilience, the pipes held. That is not Stage 7. That is a messy, imperfect system that still knows how to patch itself. So where is the danger? Because there is danger. Yale's democracy work points at one clear fault line: polarization. When voters and politicians start to see every contest as life or death, when they are willing to burn rules for a short-term advantage, when social media rewards outrage over compromise, it becomes much easier for would-be authoritarians to get away with damaging the system, and much harder for the public to punish them. That is real. That is not a meme. That is not something markets can price perfectly. Yale's climate communication work shows something else that matters when you ask Americans what they are very worried about. Majorities pick government corruption, the cost of living, and the economy. They are not calm. They are not unaware. A system where everyone is worried and angry is fragile. It can make bad decisions. But again, that is different from the empire, is mechanically scheduled to die in Stage 7 in 2025. The future path is noisy, not scripted. So what is this empire resilience factor for 2026 that you can actually use? Here it is in one phrase: adaptive capacity. Not vibes, not flags, not nostalgia. The ability of a system to take punches, absorb information, and change course without losing its core. If you want to know whether the United States is really in Stage 7, you do not look only at debt levels and culture war clips. You ask 3 questions about adaptive capacity. First, is the country still producing new knowledge and technology at scale? Global innovation rankings, patent data, and the continued dominance of United States universities and labs in highly cited fields all say yes, for now. Second, does the system still have the institutional muscle to run serious crisis responses? The existence of things like the Yale program on financial stability. The fact that central bankers and regulators still fly in to study crisis casebooks. The way the pandemic shock hit the real economy but did not crack the core pipes the way 2008 did, all suggest that muscle is still there. Third, do enough people still care about the rules to fight over them? Here the Yale Democratic backsliding work is brutally honest. Trust is low. Polarization is high. But there is still a huge infrastructure of courts, journalists, watchdogs, activists, and yes, voters, who are not ready to shrug and let the system be turned off. That mix is messy. It is dangerous, but it is not zero. As long as adaptive capacity is positive, the empire is not in a fixed Stage 7 state. It is in play. What does that mean for you in 2026? It means you should treat any collapse model that pretends to know the exact stage and the exact date as marketing, not analysis. It means your job is not to decide between everything is fine and it is all over. Your job is to price the fact that the United States is a still dominant, still innovative, still crisis-capable power with rising internal strain, and to hedge accordingly. You can diversify some assets outside the dollar. You can spread exposure across other innovative regions. You can pay attention to where polarization is most likely to hit policy without buying the idea that a 7-step diagram on YouTube has already told you the ending. So, the 2025 United States Stage 7 lie is not that America has problems. The Yale data are clear on democracy, on inequality, on climate, on stress. The lie is the part that says the game is already over. In 2026, the real edge does not go to the person who screams collapse the loudest. It goes to the person who can read risk the way serious people at places like Yale do as a moving target, generated inside a system that still knows how to learn. If you want more of that, more hype stripped out and more actual research dragged into the conversation, keep this channel in your rotation. So the next time someone tries to sell you Stage 7 in one thumbnail, you already know what questions to ask before you bet your future on their chart.